Tupac is one of the most famous and influential rappers of all time. He only dropped 4 albums while he was alive, but he still managed to change the rap game forever. According to the official story, he was shot and killed back in 1996.
He doesn't have a lot of choice but to try to distance himself from the facts as they are.
I'm innocent. I ain't killed nobody, never did ever kill nobody. They don't have no evidence against me. Came and put me in Las Vegas.
New footage of Tupac in 2026 changes everything. A newly surfaced video allegedly showing Tupac alive is spreading rapidly across the internet. Almost 3 decades after his 1996 death, the footage has split the public between disbelief and renewed suspicion. More than just a viral clip, it has dragged long-buried questions about his case back into the open. Let's dive in.
Hey, what's up? This is your boy, Fully, on the scene again. Check it out. We got Tupac in the house.
This footage matters because it arrives at a moment when the case itself has already been pulled back into public view, and it acts like a reset button on everything people thought they had put to rest. Old contradictions, old suspects, and old witness claims that never fully disappeared are suddenly being examined again, not by a small group of conspiracy forums, but by millions of people at the same time.
I could be fun, but dangerous. Not only to other people, but to myself.
For nearly 30 years, the story of Tupac Shakur has existed in a strange limbo. Officially, the case was closed by death, but it was never closed by answers. No conviction, no clear resolution, and no moment where the public or his family felt the truth had been fully established. That unresolved tension is why a single new clip can still carry this much weight decades later. Before any survival theories or viral videos, there is the official story that everyone is being forced to revisit. On September 7th, 1996, Tupac Shakur was in Las Vegas attending the Mike Tyson fight alongside Death Row Records CEO Suge Knight. What followed that night, a lobby confrontation, a drive down the strip, and a sudden drive-by shooting, became one of the most infamous unsolved crimes in music history. 6 days later, Tupac was declared dead, and that was supposed to be the end of the story. Instead, the lack of arrests, the lack of accountability, and the silence that followed turned his death into an open wound. That unresolved past is the foundation that allows any new footage, real or not, to feel like it could change everything.
But I'm here, I'm gonna go through it just to show that I have faith in the American system. But for me to have faith in the American system, these juries and everybody else has to, you know what I'm saying, play the same role and to keep an open mind. I'm already convicted.
As the case resurfaces, the conversation almost immediately shifts toward the same figure it has circled for decades. The long-running suspicion surrounding Sean Combs, better known as Diddy, has always sat at the center of unresolved questions tied to Tupac's final years. This is not a new accusation born from internet speculation, but a narrative that has persisted since the mid-1990s and refuses to fade. Those suspicions trace back to 2 critical moments: the 1994 Quad Studio shooting in New York and the 1996 Las Vegas drive-by that killed Tupac. Over the years, street rumors, investigative reporting, and later witness claims have repeatedly suggested that these events were not isolated incidents, but part of a larger chain involving industry rivalries and deeper coordination. Each time the case re-enters the spotlight, the same names and connections resurface, creating the sense that this story was never fully exposed.
We live in hell. We live in the gutter. We got us stacked up 80 deep in one building. You know, by the time you get out your house, you strapped to protect yourself.
What gives those suspicions extra weight is that Tupac himself appeared to hint at betrayal before he ever set foot in Las Vegas. In one of his most cited interviews, Tupac Shakur openly suggested that people close to him were not being honest about their roles behind the scenes. When asked directly about Puffy, he said he believed he was wrong, claimed he had proof to support that belief, but made it clear those details were not something he intended to reveal publicly. What makes that moment linger is what Tupac said next. He explained that every public denial only forced the issue back into the open, turning something personal into something the world could not ignore. In hindsight, that exchange now plays less like casual talk and more like a warning, as if Tupac was documenting distrust while he was still alive.
Pac had to know that somebody was robbing him. Pac had certain feelings based on what his mother and his family members were saying. that there's people behind scenes that doing things, it needs to stay hidden. And those people who are doing things may have a motive in getting rid of Pac.
That perspective was later reinforced by his stepbrother, Mopreme Shakur, who acknowledged that suspicion around Sean Combs was not limited to fans or internet speculation. According to Mopreme, the belief that Diddy was connected to both the 1994 and 1996 incidents has circulated openly within the industry and on the streets for decades. He has also confirmed that the Shakur family conducted its own private investigation and directly confronted Diddy, a step that underscores how seriously they have always taken these unanswered questions. That confrontation changed nothing. Mopreme has said Diddy personally denied any involvement, but the denial did not resolve the family's doubts or close the issue. Instead, it reinforced the belief that key questions were still being avoided. Reporting from outlets like the Los Angeles Times pushed the focus beyond one person and toward coordination. Those reports suggested that East Coast connected figures may have been involved in both the 1994 and 1996 attacks, reframing the case as something planned rather than spontaneous. If multiple people were involved, then the lack of resolution starts to look less like a failure and more like a gap the system never filled. The story then shifts from suspicion to something concrete. Dwayne Keith Davis, known as Keith D, becomes the central link between long-standing rumors and formal legal action. For years, he spoke openly in interviews about being inside the Cadillac the night Tupac was shot, describing how the attack was planned and carried out. In Keith D's account, his nephew Orlando Anderson was the gunman. Those statements mattered because they were not secondhand stories. They came from someone placing himself at the scene. That alone kept investigators and the public focused on the case long after it should have gone cold.
All the chicks was like, Tupac, and he was like, hey, like a celebrity, like he was in the parade. He wouldn't even been out the window. We would have never seen him.
When prosecutors in Clark County finally charged Keith D in 2023, it marked the first real legal movement in decades. Even though it came late, the charge pulled the case back into the national spotlight and reminded everyone that Tupac's murder was never officially solved. Alongside those statements came the most explosive claim tied to the case. Keith D alleged that a $1 million bounty was offered to have Tupac killed. The allegation immediately raised the stakes because it suggested financial orchestration rather than street retaliation. At the same time, investigators treated the claim cautiously. There was no independent evidence produced to verify the payment and no direct paper trail connecting it to anyone else. That caveat matters because it keeps the allegation from becoming a conclusion while still leaving it unresolved.
He doesn't have a lot of choice but to try to distance himself from the facts as they are.
The result is a familiar pattern in this case. A claim serious enough to reshape the narrative appears, but never fully collapses or fully proves itself. That unresolved space is exactly where new footage gains power, because it lands on top of allegations that were never settled one way or the other. Suge Knight has consistently questioned the official version of what happened. He has said Tupac was doing well in the hospital and has publicly suggested the circumstances around his death never added up. While Suge's credibility is complicated by his own history, his proximity to that night keeps his statements in circulation and reinforces the idea that key details were never fully explained.
I'm fine. You know what I'm saying? I know how it is day to day. It's a constant man ego check going on in this street, in this world. So part of that is just like, you know, that's my resume. But as far as the media, they look at it as something different. They don't care about my resume. They don't care about me not getting in trouble. It's just another story.
That sense of something unfinished is echoed by Mopreme Shakur's account from the hospital. He has described Tupac trying to communicate while unable to speak, appearing urgent and frustrated. That moment has become emotionally significant because it feeds the belief that Tupac was attempting to say something important that never made it into the record. As the focus returns to the present, the debate shifts to whether the new footage can actually be proven or disproven. Analysts point to age, facial structure, and movement as reasons for skepticism, while supporters argue the clip's grainy, handheld quality makes definitive analysis impossible. The uncertainty itself keeps the footage alive rather than settled.
What is this?
I'm trying to bring back 1989. I was poor in 1989, you know, I was in jail, so now we out trying to show prosperity and hope in the future.
Doubt is reinforced by long-standing issues with official documentation. Claims that no public viewing of Tupac's body ever occurred, that cremation happened quickly, and that the coroner's reported weight did not match his known build continue to circulate. None of these points prove survival on their own, but together they form the strongest foundation for ongoing skepticism. Law enforcement handling of the case has also remained a point of contention. Critics point to delays in securing evidence, limited witness follow-up, and the lack of arrest despite a high-profile crime scene. Those perceived failures make it easier for alternative explanations to persist decades later.
Everything I ever say, and if any, this is so we can set it clear, anything I ever say as it pertains to my peers and being strapped is only in self-defense.
From there, the narrative expands beyond the United States. Alleged sightings in Cuba, Somalia, and other countries have helped globalize the myth, especially when tied to family connections and political asylum stories. Even when individual images or videos are disputed, the international spread reinforces the idea that the story never stayed contained. Over time, these sightings have been arranged into an informal credibility ladder. Early amateur clips gave way to appearances in music videos, broadcast crowd shots, insider social posts, humanitarian footage, and now the most recent viral park video. Each step is framed as slightly harder to dismiss than the last, creating a cumulative pattern rather than a single point of proof.
And it's very understandable, this sense of fear and dread and desperation that he was facing.
The modern era adds another complication. Advances in AI and deepfake technology mean that highly convincing footage can now be produced without physical presence. That reality allows skeptics to explain how such clips exist, while also ensuring believers are not easily persuaded to let go. All of this operates within a system that rewards ambiguity. Media attention, cultural mythology, and long-standing distrust of institutions keep the story circulating without resolution. In that environment, the question of whether Tupac is alive remains open, not because it has been answered, but because it never stopped being asked. The alleged footage matters less for whether it is real and more for what it represents. The latest chapter in a story that has never found closure and refuses to fade away. If you want to keep digging into stories like this, like the video, share it and subscribe so you don't miss what comes next.